We are inside Black and Gold, folks. Steve and Jeff hanging out with you coming off championship weekend. We know Sean Payton will not be making it to the big bowl game again, but man, oh man, I thought about you a little bit, Jeff, going, wonder how he would have been acting in those conditions, just chilling out on the sidelines, literally chilling out on the sidelines. That was even worse than what I experienced that game in Cleveland, because it just seemed like shovels were coming down.
I doubt it was worse. It wasn't that cold. Like, it was like cold by Broncos standards, but like, or it was cold by you're standing out in the cold standards, but like that Cleveland game, it was like -10.
I was so bundled up though that I was fine except for my toes.
Sure. I mean, and that was like, I think the issue for that game more so than anything else was no one expected it to be a snow game like that, right? Like,
right, because you're still feeling the elements too the entire time.
Think about the players, right? Like, what cleats are you going to wear? You're going to wear different cleats. You're going to wear different clothing. You're going to prepare a lot differently if you're expecting a crazy snow game. And instead, they got like 3/4 of almost a normal game, and then, or like, probably like 2.5 quarters of almost a normal game, and then a blizzard for like the final quarter. If Sean Payton coaches that game like a coward, he wins that game. That's my take. Like, if once they got up by 7-0, he said, I am going to play it safe and not allow Jarrett Stidham to screw this up until we need him to do it again, they win that game because they kick a field goal, go up 10-0. The Patriots probably don't score in the first half. And then it's the Patriots trying to deal with the weather and having all those struggles that the Broncos had in those last couple of possessions, right? Because they weren't going to score either. Whoever was ahead won that when that weather started.
Yeah,
they won. They were going to win the game. And so, like, Sean not being willing to just take a short field goal and go up 10-0, in my opinion, is what lost him the game.
Brutal.
And then obviously the Patriots touchdown came on a fumble where it's like, just run the ball. It's 3rd and long. You're just trying to do too much, right? And you're coaching a game like you don't have your backup quarterback in, but like you had to coach that game like you had your backup quarterback in because you did. Anyway, that's that take. This is not a Broncos podcast, but
couple of Will Lutz missed field goals hurts too.
Doesn't hurt me. I feel bad for him.
It doesn't hurt me.
That first one was he has to make that. That was like a 53-yarder. Like, that's the second one was like, he's not going in.
Right.
What are you even thinking about going on going for a 40-something yard field goal in that? No way
happening, right?
And it got blocked. So you got to give him credit for that. Like, he didn't miss it. It got blocked. Like, we don't know whether it would have gone in. It reminded me of the Eagles Rams game last year, where it was like sunny for like most of the first half, and then all of a sudden it was a blizzard. And you have pictures from the same game where like one is everyone running in the sun, and then the other one is everyone like in a whiteout. But no, it is decided Seahawks and Patriots in the Super Bowl, which is the two best teams in the sense of, if the Broncos got there, it would have just been 2 more weeks talking about, okay, can Jarrett Stidham do it again? Whereas like the Seahawks were the Patriots were the better team. So, you know.
Good for Sam Darnold too. I saw a tweet. I can't take credit for it. Now he's going to be in the Super Bowl against the team he was seeing ghosts against.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Because it was Jets Patriots. Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So good for him, man.
Mike versus I saw a post.
Yeah, that too. Mike versus Mike.
So there's been 3 times. I can't remember who tweeted this, but it might have been Field Yates. There's been 3 times in NFL history the head coach matchup has been the same name, the same first name, and all 3 times it was Mike versus Mike. Because there was another one that was like Mike Tomlin versus maybe Mike McCarthy, Steelers, Packers. And then there was a Mike Shanahan versus Mike Holmgren. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Is Mike Holmgren a name? They make that up?
Yes, that's correct.
Seahawks.
So this is the 3rd time you said?
Yes, the 3rd time it's happened, and all 3 times have been Mike versus Mike, which is funny because if it went the other way, it could have been Sean versus Sean.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but it wasn't in the script writer's notes. So, oh well.
Sorry.
They're like mics.
Mike and Mike, hold on.
Have you seen there's folks alluding to the script writers hard at work with that original photo of this new Super Bowl, going to be in San Fran, and it's got Drake May and Sam Darnold at the head of all the quarterbacks there.
Yeah, except the problem is, if you look at the actual graphic, they put the guys in the front that they didn't think were going to make it. So yeah, they had like there's also Cam Ward
or did they, Jeff?
That doesn't make sense. Like, it's not like they were trying to prove something, like they got it wrong. If anything, it's like, wow, you guys should be embarrassed that you put these guys so far away. And the only reason people look at it and be like, oh, it's because they're the closest to the Super Bowl. But like, right. Cam Jordan's up there in the front row.
Yes, he is.
Like, there wasn't them predicting anything. They had the good quarterbacks closer to the camera of this graphic that didn't have an actual camera, if that makes sense. It was a bad way to do a graphic. But I think what it does tell you is, you look at where these teams were compared to where they are currently. And that's why any team should look at a 1-year turnaround and be like, yeah, it's possible. You just got to have the right quarterback, and you got to make the right decisions in the offseason, and you can get there. Head coach too, obviously. I mean,
what's funny is, this is a season nobody in the world had Patriots Seahawks Super Bowl.
And you got to get a little lucky.
Yeah, right? Amen to that.
Because you look at how the Patriots got there, they had the easiest schedule in football. They played Justin Herbert and the Chargers, who were bad. I mean, they're not bad in the sense that they're bad at football, but they were not good in that game. And Justin Herbert I don't think he's ever won a game in the playoffs. So that's not a bad matchup for you. Then they had CJ Stroud, who just was terrible.
He's not going to the Pro Bowl.
And then they got the Broncos with Jarrett Stidham in a snowstorm where there was no offense. So, I mean, you got to get lucky.
I got to imagine there's part of Sean's kicking himself a little bit today. A little bit.
Yeah. I mean, it's not his fault. He lost his quarterback, but he could have played it differently. But this is a Saints podcast.
Yes, sir.
And so we're going to get into it. We're going to have a rundown segment at the top. We're going to get into a few topics. It's not a lot of news, but they did make one signing since the last time we recorded. We also failed to talk about Alontae Taylor's contract in the Who Gets Paid segment, which is a pretty bad omission considering it's probably the second biggest contract conversation of the offseason.
Is it an omen that we know he's not going to get paid here?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a good conversation to have. So we'll throw that in there as well. A few other notes. Second segment, we're going to have our Senior Bowl primer. We did an interview with Justin Melo of the Draft Network, so we'll play that for y'all. I have a couple notes as well. I'm going to head out there on Tuesday morning. Practices are actually in the afternoon this year, so it'll be a little warmer, hopefully, which will be nice. But it will be later in the day, which is annoying. And then the final segment, which is going to be the biggest chunk of this program, we're going to rank the positions of need from the least need to the most need on the New Orleans Saints roster. Like, as we go into the draft, draft season, like what position is at the top of everyone's list? I think I'm going to be a little different. We both have our lists, and we'll kind of compare and contrast and see where those land. But yeah, we are full off-season mode right now. I'm cold. It's freezing here. It's probably 40 degrees inside my house.
Thankfully, it's not as bad as like the Stormageddon folks I feel like we're giving us, because I mean, me and my wife too were one of the folks on Saturday storming the grocery store early, trying to stock up on things, and it's like, all right, it's not that bad. I think being from the Northeast kind of puts the legs in a little bit of a more perspective. I don't know, not as full out worrying about a freeze coming.
Yeah, we were lucky we got the rain coming in. Like, the rain was yesterday. Now we have the cold.
Yeah.
So
I did lose power overnight for a little bit, so that sucked.
That does suck. And we got a heated pad for the dog. She's having a good time.
Nice.
The cats find it first, though, and she gets upset. She's just got to get better at kicking them out. But that's it. Any other thing you want to add before we go to the actual podcast?
No, I'll be going to the NFL Pro Shop real quick. Get my Shador Pro Bowl jersey.
You had to do it. I can't get into it. I can't.
I know.
Too much.
I'm sorry.
It's too much happening. All
We'll
right.
be back after this.
Who dat? Go Saints. Make sure to subscribe for our meandering non-Saints podcast, apparently. And we will be right back on Inside Black and Gold. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here alongside Steve Geller. Make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Leave a rating. Leave a review. We are getting into the offseason. We have one more football game left, and it's going to be Seahawks versus Patriots over in San Francisco. And that means Rashid Shaheed is Super Bowl bound. It was the only reason I was rooting for the Seahawks, and it's the only reason I will continue rooting for the Seahawks in the Super Bowl. Although I don't, as a person who grew up in Connecticut surrounded by Patriots fans, I do not need much more reason to root against the Patriots. But I will be rooting for Rashid Shaheed, and it's cool for him. Like there's times where guys get traded away, and I really don't care one way or the other. It's hard to root against Rashid Shaheed. Like, he's so much fun as a player. So
do you think too Clint Kubiak turns this into a head coaching gig?
I hope for the sake of those teams they do not, but if you're the Browns or the Cardinals, probably.
Right?
Because you got there's 10 head coaches that are going to be hired this offseason. 6 of it has already happened. And you have a situation where there's the Bills, who have Josh Allen, a former MVP, who may be the best quarterback in football. It's pretty easy sell. Even in Buffalo, you're opening a brand new stadium next year. Like, it's going to be a lot of hype around that team, and they're going to be a Super Bowl contender immediately. You got the Raiders, who, they've been terrible, but they got the number 1 pick in the draft. So they'll have Fernando Mendoza and put him right next to Ashton Genty. That's not a terrible sell, right? It's kind of like the Bears last year, relatively speaking. I mean, obviously, Caleb Williams was going to year 2, but you still had Caleb Williams. So that's where Ben Johnson went. So they'll get the top candidate that doesn't go to the Bills. And then you have the Cardinals and the Browns. And you could not, who wants to go coach those teams? So
I definitely don't want to be anywhere around Cleveland.
They have a Pro Bowl quarterback.
They have a great defense,
but they also have a Pro Bowl quarterback. Come on.
And as a rookie.
As a rookie Pro Bowl quarterback. I'm not talking about Deshaun Watson. I'm talking about Shaheed Sanders. He made the Pro Bowl, which is wild. But it's kind of like Tyler Huntley made the Pro Bowl a few years ago. It's like, at a certain point, a bunch of guys get hurt. There's a guy in the Super Bowl, and someone's got to make it. And I'm sure a lot of fans voted for Shaheed. Either way, Shaheed Sanders is going to be a Pro Bowler. But yeah, now I do have to say one more note on that game. So this is the Rams on the road in the NFC Championship, and they got the benefit of a pretty egregious no call on what should have been a defensive pass interference in the 4th quarter, with the Seahawks driving to put the game away. And it just so happened to be against the former Saints player on their roster in Rashid Shaheed. Now, if you didn't watch this play, it was a throw to the boundary. Rashid Shaheed is going to try to make a sideline catch, and the defender, I think it was Quentin Lake, puts 2 hands in his back and just shoves him to the ground. Now, I think the ref probably called it uncatchable. And when I tweeted about this, people were like, it was an uncatchable ball. So I do want to make one point clear, because I hear this a lot, and I feel like it is an often confused rule in football. The term uncatchable ball doesn't mean I don't think he was going to make the catch. That's not what it means. It means there is no physical way that you could catch that ball and stay in bounds. If there's only a 1% chance that you make a 1% catch, that's still a catchable ball, right? The NFL is built on these amazing plays. So you're not going to rule out that he makes an incredible catch along the sideline and keeps his feet in bounds. You have to assume that it could happen. Thus, all of the rules still apply. It's only uncatchable if that ball is like 10 yards out of bounds or 10 yards over his head. Like, no way is it humanly possible for him to get the ball. If you go back and watch that play, Rashid Shaheed is kind of extended over the sideline. His feet are still in bounds. And after he gets pushed in the back, the ball hits his helmet. And then, like, you're telling me that's uncatchable? No, that's a catchable ball. Now the team that doesn't want the penalty on them will go like this, uncatchable, it's uncatchable. And the refs probably saw it on the sideline. They didn't get a good look at it. And they're like, okay, fine. But if the Rams had come back and won that game,
oof,
it would have been the second time in the span of 8 years, that they won an NFC championship because of a bad missed defensive pass interference call where the defender hit the receiver way too early and the refs were like, play on. Thankfully it didn't happen. But like, that's all I'd be talking about today if that had happened.
I'm glad you said that too, because it's like, I don't think you know what uncatchable means.
No, again, it's like, yeah, it would have been a difficult catch, but uncatchable doesn't mean difficult. It means impossible.
Right.
Right. And like, yeah, he probably doesn't keep his feet in bounds, but there's also there is a percentage chance he does. Thus, you cannot foul him. Anyway, that's just my take. Because like I had like 3 or 4 people like, uncatchable. Like, that's not uncatchable. I think he would have caught that, and that would have put the Rams or the Seahawks in position to burn a lot of clock.
We really are on a Saints podcast this week.
Well, we're talking about Shaheed. That's how I'm justifying it. Is it's and it's referencing the no call and the Rams.
Oof.
Because it felt really similar to that. And like, obviously the Rams, the one in the Superdome was way more egregious. But I don't know. Had to bring that up.
You know, at least you mentioned with Shaheed there, I think Saints fans are kind of ticked off he's not still here. But to me, and I think I'm pretty sure you feel the same way, we knew that the Saints weren't going to end up spending money to keep him.
We talked about this in the last episode, and the funny thing is I made a big deal about how he hasn't caught any deep balls for the Seahawks since they traded him, and he actually did have early in that game had a bomb over the top from Darnold. So that was the first like long reception he's had for them, and he's a perfect addition for that team.
Right.
He didn't make sense on the Saints. They were not going to pay him and pair him. Like the Olave Shaheed pairing just wasn't working. You could see it wasn't working. It was too redundant. And you needed to make a change. And you were not going to, even if you kept him through the end of the year, he wasn't going to change your fate. And they were not going to pay him. And if they were going to pay him, they wouldn't have traded him. So it was good for Rashid. It worked out for him. And the Saints got 2 draft picks out of it. So
yeah, seeing Shaheed with Njigba is pretty badass.
Yeah. Yeah. And they just have a lot of weapons. It's just a good football team, right? If the Saints were in the NFC Championship this year, I would be like, yeah, okay, you can't have too many weapons when you're that dynamic of an offense. For the Saints, is like,
and man, even in Seattle's down Charbonnet right now.
Yeah, right. That was a great game, just in general. I mean, those offenses just went up and down the field,
throwing haymakers at each other.
Yeah, but all right, let's move off the NFC Championships. There's some the conference championship games, and there was a little bit of news, not much news. Like you sent me this morning because we were trying to figure out like what's even in a rundown segment. The Saints aren't changing season ticket prices for next year, which I think is a good move. Just keep the fans happy. You haven't shown them anything yet. Let's not gouge them.
You've gotten that little bit of taste back in their mouth, and you're still keeping it sweet here by not upping the ante. Because it's like as soon as you got a little bit of that good feel. And it's like, oh, you're going to hit me with more of a ticket charge. It's like, oh, no, it's like, we're keeping it as is and get this dome flowing again, because I think there's a lot more folks that want to be in that number now.
Yeah. Let's get the atmosphere right. And then you can worry about the ticket prices. How about we get some cheaper hot dogs in there too while we're at it?
I was going to say, concessions are enough anyway. So
yeah. So there's that. Tyler Shuck is a Rookie of the Year finalist, which the way they do it is stupid. Like I came across my email and I was like, why are you sending this again? But apparently how this works is there's 6 nominees and then there's fan voting to eliminate 1 player. Because now there's 5 finalists. Like that's how it works. That's
okay.
But the fans don't vote on the winner.
Right.
It's the writers that vote on the winner. So the fans just have this novelty vote to eliminate someone who wasn't going to win. Because they have the fans rank it like 1 through 6, and then whoever comes in last gets lopped off. Which is like, why are we doing this? It's stupid. But Tyler Shuck is in there. We'll see how it goes.
Now, isn't Pepsi Rookie of the Year though different than like offensive and defensive Rookie of the Year, or no?
No, that's just
okay.
That's just the title of the award. It's all AP. But that's to sponsoring it.
Right.
And I think it's just a ploy to make fans feel like they have some impact, and also just a free headline to get more attention on it. But that's going to come in a couple weeks. So we'll see how that goes. We got the Senior Bowl coming up, so that'll be something we talk about. But the only piece of real news is the Saints re-signed Julian Blackmon, veteran safety. They brought him in last year. If you recall, Tyrann Mathieu retired late in the process. They were just getting ready for camp. Tyrann Mathieu retires, and well, what are we going to do at safety? They signed Julian Blackmon, and it sure looked like that was going to be a really effective tandem of Justin Reid and Julian Blackmon, which is what we saw all of training camp. He played in week 1, played well, in my opinion, and then went home and realized he had a shoulder injury that needed surgery, and he was done for the year. There was no sign of that in the game. There was no sign of that in the post game. It was just like, well, okay. And so he did not play the rest of the way, but he was around the team. He did stick with the team. Brandon Staley does like him. So it does make sense that you'd bring him back.
Yeah, and I mean, you talk about when someone says like a seamless transition, you can definitely, like, Blackmon came in at camp and it was like, all right, it was an instantly making plays, and it was like, cool, it's going to carry into the year, and then it was cut way too short.
Yeah, and he was a ball hawk.
Yeah,
like that was the thing that really stood out about Blackmon is, he was picking off balls in camp left and right. I think he had one stretch where he ended 3 days in a row with interceptions out in California. And it's like, okay, we could use that. Instead, you had Jonas Sanker starting from week 2 on and played really well. I think he was kind of shafted out of being in the conversation for Defensive Rookie of the Year. He was never really in the conversation, and I don't think that's fair when you look at the numbers and you look at the impact he had. He started 16 games. Really never gotten taken advantage of. Like, the Saints weren't getting burned over the top constantly. He ended up with like 70-something tackles, a couple interceptions, a forced fumble. But hey, I'm just happy with the production. And so the question becomes, what does next year look like? Do you roll back with Julian Blackmon? Do you make it a competition? Do you just stick with Jonas Sanker? At this point, it's a 1-year deal, and I think you're just glad to have the depth. Because I just don't think, what I don't think you can do is go into it assuming that he's going to stay healthy, because this is back-to-back seasons that he's had a major shoulder injury. And so yeah, I think it's kind of just we'll get what we get.
Yeah, I'm with you right there. But yeah, I think even too, it's like, who knows what the future of Alontae Taylor, and you could maybe slide one of these guys into being that slot guy. Star.
I agree. Go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, or star, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's what it's called. That's what Brandon Staley calls it. It's annoying because slot just sounds better, and it's
what we're used to.
Kind of less obnoxious to say out loud. But yeah, so Alontae Taylor's contract, and I agree, these kind of bridge off one another, because I do think you're right. I think if the Saints don't bring Alontae Taylor back, then one of those two guys or both could theoretically work into the slot position. Because you can be a safety in that role. I actually think it's better suited for a safety, because you do ask that position to come up and tackle a lot, to come and run support a lot, and to send him on blitzes. And that's where Alontae Taylor, I think he had hits and misses, like literally and figuratively. Like, he's a good blitzer. He can get there, but I don't think he's always making the tackle. He got better at that as the season went on. There was a couple games early, I think the 49ers game in particular, like there was like 2 or 3 missed tackles. It's like, man, this is your job. Like you gotta tackle this guy. Luke Farrell had a touchdown where he just kind of bounced off Alontae Taylor early in that game, and that was a close game. You hold to a field goal there, it's a different game. You instead miss a tackle, and so
to me there was an Achane touchdown. I didn't understand what Alontae did.
Yeah, that was
like he froze.
That one wasn't about missing a tackle. That was about not making an attempt to tackle, and I don't know what the hell that was. I don't think we ever got a straight answer on that either. But he had some really nice moments. He made some really nice plays. So right. I think it's going to come down to, hey, are you able to get Alontae Taylor back at like a legit slot corner salary? Or is he holding out for a legit outside cornerback salary? Because you look at the salary rankings and how they go, like the Kyler Gordon currently, now that could change this year based on how the contracts are handed out. Kyler Gordon is the top paid nickel corner, and he makes about $13 million a season. And I think you could justify paying Alontae Taylor somewhere in the $13 million a season range. He's been important for you. It's an important position. you want to keep your homegrown talent. He's become a leader in a young cornerback room. Like, I think there's value there, but I don't know. Going a lot higher than that would really be a struggle for me, especially if you don't intend to play him at the outside cornerback slot, because in a couple of years, you're going to have to look at, okay, Kool-Aid McKinstry. He's in year 3 of his contract. So you're going to go into year 4 being like, are we going to be able to pay this guy? And at the top of the cornerback market, you're talking about $30 million a season. It's the wide receiver of the defense, basically. So, I mean, you have to go all the way down. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So Paulson Adebo's making $18 million. He's the 15th highest paid cornerback at $18 million. Again, remember, the top paid slot corner in the NFL is $13 million. Paulson Adebo is the 15th highest paid cornerback at $18 million. You have to go all the way down, and you're talking about Jamel Dean is getting a $13 million contract. So you're talking about 30th, and I don't think
that happening.
I don't think he's going to accept that type of contract.
I agree.
And if he pushes for more, you're probably going to be like, all right, go out and test your market. Right. Come back and see us. If we can get something done, we'll get something done. More likely we won't, because he's going to want to play outside corner. And I think Alontae is probably going to walk.
And I think because the Saints they're set up pretty well on the outside right now. When you mention Kool-Aid, and then year 1 from Quincy, there's a lot of bright, like you have a lot of hope for that group in general. And I just don't see you, going over that 13 million threshold for Alontae as your star role, where I can put maybe a Blackmon or someone else in there and continue maybe to bolster the safety position, though. Yeah,
and you can draft a nickel corner. It's one of those positions in the draft that, like, if you want to get the top outside corner, you're probably having to spend a first-round pick. But you can typically get the top nickel corner prospect. It's kind of like interior offensive line versus the tackles, right? Like, if you really want a premier tackle, it's a first-round pick. But you can get the top-rated guard, the second, third, fourth-rated guard in the second round. I think it's the same with outside corner versus slot corner. And honestly, you look at Jonas Sanker, and I think he could potentially be a, that kind of mini linebacker in terms of how he's able to get upfield, play the run, and then have some flex, right? Like, if you need him to shift back to safety, he can do that. And then you have, if you draft a young player, a guy who can fill in based on health and based on injuries, like, that might make the most sense. Blackmon is just a tough sell, because if you do go all training camp and say he's our star corner, he's this guy at this key position for us, and then he gets hurt, then you're like, well, what do we do now? So I think that would be a tough sell for me, to just say he's the guy, but he is someone who could probably play that position in pinch. So, and
I just know Staley loves to do too, obviously.
Yes, and that's just where I land on that, on Alontae versus this situation, because if you're gonna pay Chris, which I think you're gonna pay Chris, and you're gonna use some of this dead cap, and you're gonna try to maybe get cheaper on defense. You're gonna keep Cam Jordan, Demario Davis, most likely. There's a cap casualty, or there's a I don't even know what I call it, a cap casualty. I just think it's like there's a sensibility you have to have on the contract somewhere, and I think it probably comes with Alontae and just saying it doesn't make sense. And then remember, if you're smart in free agency like you were this past season, you could potentially get a comp pick out of the deal. So you could turn him into maybe a 4th-round pick.
I don't know. I do expect the Saints to be a little aggressive in free agency, though. I'm not saying you're going after some of these top-tier names, but with offensive linemen, though, especially the interior, I don't know. You could be spending big bucks, though.
It's definitely possible, and there won't be a lot of I don't think you're going to have many more than maybe 1 or 2 compensatory free agents. Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see. But either way, that's where I land on it. And if they can get him back in that slot corner market range, and you're talking 3 years, $39 million, something like that, I think they could stomach that. I just don't know if you're going to go higher. And I think that's why when we talk about, like, he's being a team player by shifting inside and playing this slot role, that's why. Because when you come up for a contract, there's a big difference. There is a crevasse right? There's a chasm. There's a I'm trying to come up with other words for gigantic gap. There's a gigantic gap. A Grand Canyon-sized gap. I don't know why I'm still going. In between the outside corner and the slot corner.
You're emphasizing how big this gap is.
Salary. It is probably more significant than any other position when you consider it's called the same thing.
Well, that's why we remember way back with C.J. Gardner-Johnson, he was ticked off.
Yeah, well, he was a safety, so it's a little different, right? Because Alontae Taylor is a cornerback. Like can, like you can put him outside and say he's our starting outside corner. Whereas C.J. Gardner-Johnson was a safety. So he was asking for a top-end safety contract. Alontae probably would settle for like the 20th highest paid cornerback contract in the NFL, which would put him, which would put him along with Christian Benford from the Bills, who is making $17.25 million a year. But even that, to me, is more than you're willing to pay when he's not your starting outside corner.
Yeah.
Because, I don't know.
Man, we talk about wide receiver money. Corner money is ridiculous, too.
It is. And it makes sense because the wide receivers in the corners play against each other.
What do you know?
So you do need starting outside corners, but I feel like you have two starting outside corners. And it's frustrating because Alontae Taylor is a really valuable player. And that's what's going to end up happening is he's going to go out and test his market, and teams are going to be like, we can sign him as our starting outside corner. And then if we need to, we can shift him inside and play the slot. Like that gives you a lot of flexibility. And not a lot of players can say they can do that, or at least say they have done it a lot. And he can. So he's going to have a pretty significant market. And I think that's what's going to end up hurting the Saints in this conversation. But that's the conversation we didn't have last week, and we should have. So that's really all I got for our rundown. You got anything else?
To me, sadly, Alontae feels like someone who will be in another uniform, at least on my end. And that's why I just feel like someone like a Dallas even will come in and pay for his services to have him as that outside corner money that he's looking for, that the Saints will not pay.
Yeah, a team with a little bit more cap flexibility than the Saints do right now, as they're kind of getting back toward the baseline, is going to do that, and the Saints aren't going to want to match it.
Unless Brandon Staley says I have to have him as my star, as that, like I said, between star and the slot, it's the same damn thing, but he calls it star. And if he says, Alontae's my dude, maybe it happens.
Either way, that's where you are, and it's a bummer because kind of like Rashid Shaheed, like I like Alontae Taylor, and the way his the interviews with him went toward the latter end of this past season sounded a lot like Rashid Shaheed's interviews, because I think Rashid Shaheed could see the writing on the wall and is like, I'm either getting traded or whatever.
But it's not right. It's not going to end here.
It's not going to be.
It's not continuing here.
It's not going to be. I'm a Saint for life, and I think Alontae Taylor can kind of see that as well. And they've both been. They were both good team players. Like Rashid was a much different story because he was a UDFA versus Alontae was a second-round pick. But like when you talk about, okay, he could have made a much bigger deal about, I don't want to shift inside. I want to start outside. I'm an outside cornerback, and he chose to be a team guy, and it probably cost him money.
And even he made it kind of known he wasn't thrilled about it, but he still went out there and did it.
Yeah, right. He didn't force the team to trade him like CJ did.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. But all right, let's wrap up that segment. We're going to hit a break. We're going to come back with an interview that Steve and I did with Justin Melo of the Draft Network. Get kind of loaded up on Senior Bowl talk. Some of the targets that we're looking at going out there. Practices are Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We'll also have a recap show on WWL Radio on Friday. I'll be on that with Steve over there, Shaky Steve, as you can see on the camera. I don't know what he's doing.
Typing away.
He's typing, and all that stuff going to be cold. But I'll bundle up, and I'll make sure that I'm back here to healthy next week for that podcast.
Cold's all right. Hopefully, just it doesn't get any wet, and wind is the worst. Wet wind in the cold is the worst.
Precipitation would be rough, but all right. Had a quick break. Come back with Justin Melo of the Draft Network. Who dat? Stick around. We'll be right back. And we're back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here alongside Steve Geller. This will be our Senior Bowl preview segment, getting ready for a few days of practices. Again, as we've talked about previously, the Saints draft Senior Bowl players religiously. Dating back to 2019 when they took Eric McCoy, they have drafted at least 2 players from the Senior Bowl in each of those 6 drafts. Last year, they took 5 Senior Bowl players. So it's always important to keep an eye on it. The Saints will be getting a good look at the American team. You have Joel Thomas, Saints running backs coach. He will be the head coach. Then you will have Scott Tolzien, Saints quarterbacks coach, Peter Sermon, Saints linebackers coach, and Kyle Wilbur, Saints special teams assistant, as the offense coordinator, defense coordinator, special teams coordinator, respectively, and then a couple other assistant coaches. So they're going to get a look at it. One thing I do want to mention before we go into the interview is I was talking to Mike Detillier about like his players to watch. And if you want to check that out, we have, I think there's like 19 players that he wants to keep an eye on. It's listed over at WWL.com. He's got good write-ups for everybody. But 34 players who committed to the Senior Bowl this year, they didn't show up. So that includes like Ruben Bain.
Some of those names I kind of figured, like a Bain.
AJ Halsey didn't show up, like from LSU. So it's going to be a much smaller group than we're used to. And I think that's due at least in part to the weather. Because you look at the forecast and you're like, how important are these practices to me? Am I going to go out there in 28 degrees and screw up my hamstring to, there's going to be a combine, there'll be workouts.
For me, I was surprised Bailey, another defensive end, and Bain were, in the mix. I was like, you guys are first round picks. What are you doing?
Yeah, both Miami guys didn't show up. But Bain was weird because it's like, yeah, you're a top 10 pick. Like, there's a reason you don't see top 10 guys going out there and doing this stuff because they don't need to. It's the Garrett Nussmeyers who need to go out there and prove no, I can get the injury did kind of take away some arm strength there. He needs to go out there and prove he can still throw the ball hard.
Yeah, I'm rooting for Nuss. I can't wait to see what he puts out there at the Senior Bowl, man.
Agreed, but I did want to just mention that because I think there's at least a couple names that we talk about in the conversation with Justin that are not even going to be there. And it's just kind of interesting because it's going to be if there's a reason the Saints don't draft a Senior Bowl player this year, it might be because they didn't show up. But either way, let's start that interview. Justin Melo. We also talk a bit about the Titans because he covers the Titans as well as doing all this draft stuff, and talk about Robert Saleh, Cam Ward, and all the first round picks who get their coaches fired in year 1, which seems like a problematic thing. Either way, here you go.
Right up the road, Mobile, Alabama. We got the Senior Bowl going on. Jeff, you'll be heading out there soon to soak in all those practices. Another guy you'll see out there, Justin Melo of the Draft Network's on the line right now with us. Justin, how you been doing, man?
I'm doing well, guys. Appreciate you for asking. I've been busy the last couple of weeks getting to know a lot of these players who are going to be there at the Senior Bowl. Been doing the Senior Bowl interview series for the Draft Network, and I've got some great stories. Got to meet a lot of great people over these last couple of weeks.
Go ahead and list any that have stood out. Like who are there any players that you think we should be aware of that you got to know recently?
Yeah, there are a couple that I think might be flying under the radar a little bit. Charles Demings, the cornerback out of Stephen F. Austin, is the first player in program history to ever be invited to the Senior Bowl. I mean, talk about what an honor. And he deserved it. He earned it. It's not a charity invite. 4 interceptions this past year. He's got great size, over 6 feet tall, about 195, 198 pounds, 35 career pass breakups, really confident in press man coverage. I talked to him today about his mentality and just said he's got a next play. If something goes wrong, I got a dry erase memory is what he called it. We wipe it clean and we're on to the next rep. I was really impressed with his demeanor, and I know the coaching staff in Mobile decided to get him down there. Another guy who stuck out to me was Cage Casey, the offensive tackle out of Boise State. I think he's going to make some waves down there. He's really technically sound, polished in his technique. He told me everything he does is kind of based on fundamentals first and foremost. So many great guys. Georgia Tech interior guard Keelan Rutledge, probably the most physical player that I've spoken with. Was all he wanted to talk about was his motor and playing through the whistle, and now he's a finisher. really excited to see those three guys specifically.
Looking at the QB group this year, what are your thoughts overall on the guys there? And obviously, folks here have some interest with LSU's Garrett Nussmeier taking part.
You know, I was on a call with the Senior Bowl yesterday, and media director Drew Fabianich, great line on his part saying, I can't quit Garrett Nussmeier's junior tape. You know, when I watch Nuss's junior tape and I see when he was healthy and what he did there, 29 touchdown passes. I mean, we were talking about him. Is he going to be the first overall pick in the 2026 draft before the 2025 season started? Now, look, he got hurt this year. Things didn't go well for LSU. We know the coaching situation, things of that nature. It just kind of went off the rails a little bit. But it's hard to turn on that junior tape and not remember what he looked like. And I think there might be something there. You know, you look at a guy like Tyler Shuck, who went down there last year, performed really well, top 40 pick, you guys know really well with the New Orleans Saints. And I think Garrett Nussmeier's got an opportunity to do something similar. You know, go down there. I'm expecting him to be the best quarterback in attendance, probably make himself a little bit of money while he's there and, get himself back into that sort of, top 40, top 50 conversation.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that it's easy to look at this season and how it went for LSU and just, say all the shine coming off that a young quarterback, but the talent is there. It wasn't a mirage. You have a guy playing hurt. What do you think is important for a young player in this situation? Like what's the mindset you want to see a guy bring to an event like that when he's coming off this type of season? Because I think it's an opportunity more so than anything else. Because you may if you can turn yourself into a second, third round pick. I don't even know where he's going in mock drafts right now. You could end up in a positive situation. Like I think the Rams, right? If he ends up there as a second round pick, what would be a better scenario than to sit behind a Matthew Stafford for however long and then become the heir apparent? I'm just curious, what do you think about that?
Absolutely. And keep in mind, Sean McVay has shown interest in doing that. It didn't work out, but they took Stetson Bennett a couple of years ago with that sort of same thing in mind, right? He's going to sit and then we'll see if we have something. I think with Nuss, look, I think there's a great chance that he's going to be the best quarterback in attendance down there. If you've been there before, they tend to start slow, quarterbacks, day one, day two. You're dealing with guys you've never thrown the ball to before, more often than not, playbooks, coaching. Like there's a day or two adjustment period for those quarterbacks to acclimate to the environment. I think maybe more so than any other position group. But once he gets going, I do think he'll probably be head and shoulders the best quarterback. And what does the mindset have to be? Well, what I said about Charles Demings earlier, dry erase. Forget what happened this past season. Go there with the right mindset and approach and say, hey, I'm going to be the one out here that teams are going to have at the top of their board out of all the quarterbacks in attendance. Now, remember, we're talking about the quarterback position, okay? There's so much that goes into solving it. If you're one of the teams that has a hole there and you need to figure it out, and this might be a one quarterback draft, and you don't have the first overall pick in this draft, and you're trying to solve it, you've got to try to identify the right guy. You've got to find who the Tyler Shuck is in this class. And I think there's a great chance, great opportunity for Garrett Nussmeier to be that guy.
Justin, if you're looking at some of the offensive skill players, running back, wide receiver in this group, curious some of the names that stand out to you. I know the two running backs out of Penn State are definitely the top guys at their position, I think.
Yeah, certainly. Nick Singleton is going to be a big one to watch down there out of Penn State. I think he's got a three-down skill set. I think that didn't always do the best job of coming through this past year. Again, I don't know what the heck happened at Penn State. It wasn't a great situation there, but I think it sort of limited his production. But, I'm always going to focus on some of the underrated guys.
Okay.
Justin Jolly, the tight end out of NC State, is super athletic, makes plays in the passing game. A guy I'm really excited to watch, and I think you guys should be as well, is a tight end out of Wyoming, John Michael Gillenborg. That's a guy who thrives as a pass catcher, does really well when he's detached from the line of scrimmage. Yeah, John Michael Gillenborg, when he's detached from the line of scrimmage and you get him out in space, creates mismatches, safeties and linebackers. He's had some decent passing game production. And I think, again, a bit of a limited ceiling playing at Wyoming, but I think he's going to have an opportunity to go down there and show that he can compete with some of the bigger school guys. Colin Lacey out of Louisville is a really, really good punt returner. I think he's going to make waves there as well. Le'Veon Moss, the running back out of Texas A&M, is someone that I really like. One of the quarterbacks, by the way, that I think is going in with a lot to prove, and I think could surprise a lot of people, is Cole Payton, the quarterback out of North Dakota State. I mean, I know some scouts who are incredibly high on him. So there's a good group. Harrison Wallace, the receiver out of Ole Miss. There's a really, Aaron Anderson, if Garrett's going to be throwing to someone familiar, the receiver out of LSU, who you guys will know as well. I think the O-line group has got a good group. I know you asked about skill players specifically, but one guy I'm excited about, we always fall in love with a small schooler, right, in terms of on the offensive line especially. Remember, I still remember when Quinn Miners went down there and made himself a lot of money. And last year I thought Jackson Slater out of Sac State did a great job and ended up getting drafted into a good position. This year, it might be Delby Lemieux. What a name. You want to talk about the all-name team. I think Delby Lemieux would probably have a good argument for the all-name team. Delby Lemieux, and it gets better, out of Dartmouth. Delby Lemieux out of Dartmouth is an O-lineman who I'm really excited to watch. He thrived at tackle at Dartmouth for years. We're projecting that he's going to kick inside. I think from a length and weight perspective, it'll probably make more sense for him to play guard at the next level, but I'm really stoked about that kid out of Dartmouth. I think he's going to surprise you.
Justin, just changing track a little bit. I know you're close to the Titans. You do a lot with the Titans. What do you think about Robert Saleh, and what are what's your review of Cam Ward's rookie season? I feel like he's probably the least talked about number one pick in quite a while, just in the sense that, they're one of the three teams, along with the Saints and I think with the Browns, who didn't get a national TV game. So I don't think a lot of people necessarily got to watch him. But when the Saints went out there, I thought, you saw a player just getting better and better and better. What do you think about that combination, the hire Robert Saleh and Cam Ward in general?
Tell you about Cam Ward's rookie season. The Titans are not writing the handbook on how to make life easy on a rookie quarterback, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, after the third game, they stripped their head coach of play calling duties, and they handed that to the quarterback's coach, not the offensive coordinator, but the quarterback's coach. And then they fired that head coach 3 weeks later after week 6 and installed the senior offensive assistant as the interim head coach in Mike McCoy. So between head coach, play caller, coordinator, he had about 4 or 5 different people in his ear throughout his rookie season. And oh, by the way, all his best pass catchers were rookies, right? 4th-round picks, Gunnar Helm, Shimmeray DK, Alec Manor. They made life really difficult on Cam Ward this year, and I thought he answered the bell at every turn. The numbers don't necessarily jump off the screen, but he surpassed, was on track, 3,000 passing yards, 15 touchdowns. I think he only threw 7 interceptions. He had a really nice year, and it got significantly better as it went on. I think in 5 of their last 6 games, he got hurt in the last week. 5 of the last 6 he was healthy for, they scored 24 or more points. And you look at some of the defenses they did that against, the New Orleans Saints, the Seattle Seahawks, who didn't let anyone else score above 10 points throughout that stretch. He put some really good things on tape as the year went forward, and I think the Titans, they've got every reason to believe in that rookie quarterback and think that he's the answer. The hire of Robert Saleh, I think, is exactly what they needed. They made a mistake a couple of years ago when they fired Mike Vrabel, and they sort of lost their way since then, and they didn't have enough accountability in that room. Brian Callahan, the former head coach, was not a culture guy. Jeffrey Simmons was on Taylor Lewan's podcast the other day and talked about how he didn't feel like his teammates were being held accountable or were being held to a certain standard. I mean, Robert Saleh is kind of Mike Vrabel light in that sense, right? He's a fiery, defensive-minded guy who's competitive, and I think he's a leader, he's a motivator, and he's a culture builder. And when I look at the way that organization is structured now, Mike Borgonzi, the general manager, is a football guy through and through. I'm not surprised that he hired a Robert Saleh. And when I look in the room, who's going to lead this new wave of culture? Well, on offense, it's Cam Ward, and on defense, it's Jeffrey Simmons. And all those guys, I tell you, those personalities, they're like ducks in a row. So I think this organization is finally moving in one direction, and they're working together towards a common goal. I think Robert Saleh is a great hire for what the Tennessee Titans need.
This isn't really a question. It's more of an observation. I'm curious what's your take on it. This year marked the 4th time in a row that a quarterback who went number 1 overall had his head coach fired in his first season in the NFL, right? Cam Ward this year. Last year was Caleb Williams. Year before that was Bryce Young with Frank Reich. And in 21, it was Trevor Lawrence with Urban Meyer. I'm just curious, how do you think that affects young quarterbacks? Because it's just like, typically you'd be like, we have this new guy. We want to build something sustainable around him. We want consistency. And then every time it seems like, we're just going to pull the rug out from under you.
It's funny. Sometimes it can work well. Like it's not ideal. But you look at a guy like Caleb Williams. Ben Johnson came in and righted the ship. with Jacksonville, it was a little wonky there, but like Doug Peterson came in after Urban Meyer initially steadied the ship, then they hit a wall, and now they've steadied it again under Liam Cohen. So, I'll tell you, I'll be honest with you, what drives me crazy is when organizations are drafting a quarterback number one, I think it should represent a great opportunity for a clean slate for all involved, right? And where the Bears now and the Titans, who are the two teams who have done it in consecutive years, where they went into this and where they made a mistake is a clean slate should mean everyone's timelines are aligned. That's the way I view organizational structure and the opposite. You don't want to be dysfunctional, right? Well, the Bears probably should have fired Matt Eberflus before they took Caleb Williams, and the Titans probably should have fired Brian Callahan before they took Cam Ward. But they end up drafting these quarterbacks, and they go into it with head coaches who are on the hot seat. And lo and behold, both of them, they didn't make it till the end of the year, right? Like both Eberflus and Callahan got fired in the middle of the year. I would love to see football teams, when you have an opportunity to draft a quarterback number one, sort of do what the Raiders are doing this year. And I know they haven't been a model of consistency themselves, but they admitted the mistake on the head coach, and they're going to go hire a new one, and they're going to say, hey, we're going to hire someone who's going to draft the quarterback at number one, and they're going to believe in each other. They're working towards a common goal, and I believe they'll be aligned, on sort of the same timeline. So I think the biggest mistake NFL teams make with the Bears, Titans, a couple of those teams went wrong, you just mentioned, is not making sure you have all your ducks in a row before drafting a quarterback at number one.
And Justin, before we let you go, just curious your thoughts on the Saints draft class from this past year. Obviously, Kelvin Banks Jr., Tyler Shuck are the headline names, their first and second round picks. But overall, this team really got a lot of contributions from the rest of the class as well.
I mean, Mickey Loomis did a phenomenal job. I know it kind of gets his, he's got his critics for certain reasons, but
for sure.
You look at the draft class, I mean, back-to-back first-round picks at tackle, and I think they've done a good job solidifying that position. It was obviously an issue for them in the past when they had missed on a couple picks, but I think they've got their bookends of the future. Anytime you can find a franchise quarterback in the second round, you're thanking your lucky stars. And they've got every reason to believe they've not only got the franchise quarterback, but Mickey Loomis also hired the right head coach to help him grow and develop. I think they've got a good one in Kellen Moore. And I'll tell you who might be my favorite, the underrated pick in the class. I think you know where I'm going. I did 3 or 4 interviews with him last year. We couldn't get each other off the phone. Our paths kept crossing. Was Jonas Sanker. That safety came in, and I wasn't surprised. He was really productive in college. I believe he had consecutive 2 or 3 100 tackle seasons in a row when he entered the draft. And lo and behold, guys who are productive in college are productive at the NFL level. I thought Jonas Sanker came in and played real high-level ball for the Saints this year. Anytime you're getting at least 3 starters out of a class, you consider that a huge success. And I think the Saints already have 3 of them, and you've got some opportunity for some of those other guys to still grow and develop into starters in year 2 or 3. So I think the Saints did a phenomenal job with this draft class. They won more games. You saw clear improvement under a rookie quarterback, a first-year head coach. You feel good about those 2 people who I would say are in the most important positions in any franchise. It's the head coach and the quarterback. I love what the Saints are building, and I think it started with the head coaching hire, but certainly from here on out, it's going to start with this 2025 rookie class. They're going to show the 2026 class the way. They're going to raise the bar. These are the expectations. This is the culture that we're building in this room under this coach. I don't know that the Saints could have done a better job in the 2025 NFL draft.
Justin, always appreciate the time. And, yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of positive momentum after the last couple of years here.
I appreciate you, gentlemen. Thanks for having me.
All right, and we are back, just closing out that segment. One thing that I think I'm coming around on, and we'll talk about this more, and I don't know who's out there for running backs, but is I'm getting closer and closer on, give me Jeremiah Love at number 8 overall. I'm into it. I'm into it. Now, he's not going to be out there, but I think I'm going to end up looking at a lot of these running backs in this class, and every time I'm just going to come back and land on Love. Every time.
There's a huge drop off from him to the next dude.
Yes, it's all those words we came up with to talk about the contracts with Alontae Taylor. That's just like this with the running back
exactly.
class. The other guy, and Justin mentioned him there, and I agree. And this is a guy I've taken a good look at already. Is Justin Joly. I believe his name is pronounced Joly. It's Joly. I know a lot of people say Jolly, which is more fun. and festive. But I believe it is Jolie. Tight end out of NC State. I want the Saints to draft a tight end this year. I want them to invest in a tight end. It does not have to be round 1 or round 2. I don't know where Jolie's going to end up, but go watch this guy's tape and understand, like, this is the type of athlete the Saints need in this system alongside Juwan. Like, I'm not looking for a Juwan Johnson replacement. I'm looking for a guy that can play at the same time and be a blocker and also a weapon in the passing game. Right. So that's the guy I'm taking a close look at, because I'm trying to think of who he reminds me of. Maybe like a Delaney Walker. Kind of looks like him, where he's just kind of this like rumbling, tumbling dude, a little smaller. Mike Detillier compared him to like a slightly bigger Harold Fannin Jr., which I don't know if that's like the reason Harold's able to do the stuff he does is because he's smaller. So I don't know how that really works. But that's a guy I want to keep a close eye on this week, and I suggest others do as well, because that's who I'm going to be pushing for, barring anything changing here.
No, I agree with the tight end is definitely on my list of, we're going to get into positions of need. You need to increase the talent in that room. And by no way is it a knock against Juwan. I just want more support.
Yeah. Like the way the NFL is trending is you want 2 to 3 capable tight ends in your roster,
especially for Kellen's scheme.
Exactly. Like, I want to be able to play 12, 13 personnel and feel like all those guys are weapons.
Right.
At least to some degree. That's what the Rams did this year, and that's where the league is trending. And I think the Saints should be trying to get on top of it. But all right. Thanks again to Justin Melo for coming on. That was our Senior Bowl segment. We're going to have one more segment. We are going to rank the Saints positions by need. This is not necessarily who we think they're going to draft, but what is the biggest need versus what is the lowest need? Makes sense. Simple enough. I'm sure we'll find a way to screw it up. Either way, who dat? Go Saints. I'm Jeff Nowak. He is Steve Geller. Make sure to subscribe, leave a rating on Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts. If they allow you to leave a rating, make sure to do that there as well. Make sure to subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Otherwise, we'll be right back. And we are back on Inside Black and Gold. Jeff Nowak here alongside Steve Geller. This is the Saints podcast. We're in the offseason, so we're looking for topics. If you have any topics you'd like us to get into, let us know on our talk-in text line, which is really just the comment section of wherever you get your podcast. So leave a comment. Let us know what you want to see more of. YouTube as well. And leave a comment there. You can also hit me up on Twitter at Jeff_Nowak, at Steve Geller WWL. We also have a show podcast at Saints_pod, which I do not use very often, but I should. Either way, I keep saying that. Maybe this is the year. Maybe this is the year we do it. Anyway, for this segment, we will be getting into positions of need. What do the Saints need the most? We'll be starting at the bottom and ranking from there to the top. We have not seen each other's lists. I think the best way to do this would be I'll tell you my list, or at least like I'll go from the bottom to the top. And then if it's the same, great. We can talk about that. If it's different, then you'll explain to me why you think that position should be there. And if we want, we can make a consensus list. If we don't want to, we can just roll through it, but we'll decide that on the fly. Make sense?
Makes sense.
All right. So starting at the bottom, and now we're here. The lowest position of need, and it feels good to say this, in my opinion, for the New Orleans Saints in the 2026 NFL draft, which is what we're talking about, and free agency, I suppose. Quarterback. I have quarterback at the bottom of the list. And to me, the reason is it's not that I think Tyler Shuck is like this future superstar. It is, I feel like you have a starter. I feel like you have a backup. And I also feel like either you need a quarterback or you don't. It is either all or nothing. Either you're in the top 10 of the draft and you're like, we're going quarterback all the way if he's there, or we like the guy we have. We're going to see what he can do. You may still draft a quarterback in the mid rounds if someone really catches your eye and he's there and it's like, all right, let's do it.
Yeah.
But as far as from a need perspective, I just don't like, there's no way you're going to this draft thinking we need to get a quarterback to play for us. And that's a good feeling to have. Like that means that you're in a pretty good spot from a quarterback perspective, in my opinion.
I'm right there with you. I actually had quarterback depth as bottom of the barrel, and I could see them possibly bringing a veteran free agent. Like you said, later on in the rounds, if there's someone that catches Kellen eye that he thinks he could be that developmental piece, although I fully expect to see Hunter Decker still around. But curious to see what else you're looking to do around Tyler Shuck, because to me, he is the dude for next year. There's no QB competition to see if Rattler can retake, that number one spot. But do you want to have someone else as the number two guy besides Spencer, like that, like I mentioned, a veteran free agent?
Some of these are going to be contingent on whether I trade a guy, and I think Spencer Rattler is realistically a guy that you could you could shop around this offseason.
For sure.
In the sense of like, there's teams out there who may need a bridge or just need to figure out someone who can start games, and he's a guy who started 14 games in the NFL and is on a rookie contract that other teams could afford, right? So I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that he gets traded, and if that's the case, then you may start, that may move this up the list a little bit. But I'm talking more so needs for players that are going to play.
Yeah.
And the backup quarterback isn't going to play unless something weird happens. So I'm still keeping it there.
And that was definitely nice, like you said, is like I get to put this at the bottom.
Correct. And another position that's nice to put at the bottom, in my opinion. So let's see. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 total positions listed, which is like some of them are split up into multiple positions. So my 11th, which is second to last, offensive tackle. I feel like I go into this draft thinking I don't need a tackle. If someone shows up and is just like the far and away the best prospect on my board and I'm on the clock, that doesn't mean I won't draft him, but I'm not reaching for it. That's really what this is. It is, are you going to reach for someone at this position, or do you feel like you're set and you do not have to take anyone outside of their draft slot where they are the best, where they are at the top of your board? That's what we're talking about. It won't be the case for quarterback. To me, it won't be the case for offensive tackle either, because you got Kelvin Banks at left tackle. You got Taliese Fuaga at right tackle. You could obviously add some depth, but otherwise I feel pretty good.
Boring with you. Offensive tackle depth I have there as well. You got back-to-back first-round picks at tackle. We know the injuries and some shuffling have, altered, I guess, the trajectory of some, like, people were kind of down on Fuaga after this season. We know he's dealing with some ankle issues. I'm not really worried too much about Banks or Fuaga, but, at least a trustworthy swing tackle along the way, but there's nothing that's that immediate need where I think I need to invest in an offensive tackle. And we've talked about, we feel like you got your bookends for the future locked up here.
The only way tackle becomes a need, in my opinion, at least this year, is if you feel like Fuaga is your answer at guard, in which case I can upgrade at tackle.
Do you do that to the guy though again?
I don't. I'm just saying, like, that's the only way that tackle would climb up is if you feel like that's the answer. And we'll talk more about guard when we get there. But like, to me, that I'm just saying, like, what's the scenario where tackle is the pick? It's because you're like, we think that we can really upgrade a tackle, and we think Tally can be a really good guard. That's the only. And again, I'm not telling you that you're going to Andres Pete the guy.
Yeah.
But the Andres Pete scenario, which we all saw happen, is the scenario where you end up with tackle. But right now, second to last. Next on my list, and it kind of bridges off the Alontae Taylor discussion from earlier, outside corner.
Yeah.
I don't think outside corner's a need.
Right. It's you always need your cornerbacks, but we've mentioned Kool-Aid with Quincy. I think, you got some solid dudes right there, and injuries can always wreck things, but getting that outside corner guy isn't an immediate need for me right now, considering what you have. I mean, I know, like, you feel like you always need pass rushers, we always need corners, but as a most pressing need for the team, I'm just not there on outside corner.
No, I agree, and you can never have too many.
Right.
So I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility to go corner just because, I mean, sure, like, that's a highly paid position, and sometimes you have to move on from players. Look at Alontae Taylor. And remember, when they drafted Alontae Taylor, they had Marshawn Lattimore and Paulson Adebo starting on the outside. They didn't need a corner then either. They still took a corner. Now, it was a different regime. It was a Dennis Allen regime. So maybe he had a little extra thumb on the scale than Kellen might have pushing for a corner. But either way, just because I have it down toward the bottom doesn't mean they won't draft a position, but I do have it down toward the bottom. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Okay.
This has been very boring. We've been the same on the list.
I think that just means we're right.
Yeah.
Next position, and the next two positions you could probably flip and say one or the other. I have inside linebacker and safety.
Okay. Yeah.
Is that correct?
My next one is definitely linebacker depth.
Yeah, inside linebacker specifically. Now we're talking about a 3-4, so outside linebacker is its own different thing. But inside linebacker, so we're talking about Demario Davis, Pete Werner. Now again, this is a position that you put kind of an asterisk next to and saying,
Could
okay,
change.
but what if you don't bring back Demario? What if you trade Pete Werner?
Correct.
Then suddenly that goes up. But as of right now, where I assume Demario is coming back and I assume Pete Werner is coming back, actually I have a Pete Werner card right behind me. I got one the other day. Then a linebacker is low. You can still add pieces, but I like Danny Stutzman. I like Isaiah Stallbert.
Yep.
So I feel decent about the depth, and you'll go from there. You do want linebackers for special teams. You want safety for special teams, but I think both of those positions you have your starters, and when you have your starters, the need kind of gets knocked down. Now safety with Julian Blackmon, Jonas Sanker, Justin Reed, and whoever else, you could probably stand to add a piece there, even if you don't move any of those players. So I put it slightly ahead of linebacker from a need perspective, but they're pretty close together in my opinion.
Yeah, just the back end strong, aging contracts would be really the only thing you're worried about.
Yeah, and injuries, health, right? Like I can't look at Blackmon and say, "Oh, we have perfect depth," because he hasn't proved to me he can stay healthy. So we'll see.
Yeah, he's like the new Chase Young going into this year. It's like, can you, I guess, stay on the field?
So to recap, these are the easy conversations in my opinion. Yeah. Like these are all the low needs. So you start from low to high: quarterback, offensive tackle, outside corner, inside linebacker, safety. And I think that's where you have kind of a cutoff. And from that position on, you're talking about these are all needs to some degree. And I do think that's being able to say quarterback, offensive tackle, outside corner are not needs. It means you're in pretty good shape. Would you agree?
Yeah, I mean, there's still some major ones on this list, though, obviously.
Yeah, but these are positions you can get. Like when you're talking about quarterback position, offensive tackle, and cornerback, those are difficult to find outside of the first two rounds. You can find think of like a Puka Nacua in the 5th round, or Amon-Ra St. Brown in the 4th round, or whoever else.
Puka Nacua in the 5th round.
Like those are positions where you can find some real good players in day 2, or day 3. You're not finding a lot of quarterbacks day 2, day 3. You're not finding a lot of tackles. You're not finding a lot of starting quarterbacks. So outside of the 2nd round, even. So I think that's what makes me feel good about this roster. The next position on my list, people are going to disagree with, and we'll see where you land. I have wide receiver as the next on this list, which means it's pretty low on the positions of need. It is still a need, but it's at the bottom for me of all these other positions.
I have receiver ahead of like tight end and actually defensive end depth.
I can see that. I just think, like, who are your tight ends? Like, I look at it and say, I have a star edge rusher. I have a high quality in Chase Young. I have a high quality edge rusher in Carl Granderson, and I have a veteran in Cam Jordan. That's my main rotation, right. And then a few other players. I have at wide receiver my star receiver in Chris Olave. We'll see what his contract ends up being. I have a legitimate number 2 option who's a big body option in Devon Vele. And then I have some high upside, kind of gambles in Jalen Polk, Trey Palmer, and then who knows, Bub Means, whatever. And a few other players on the list. I think you probably want to add a veteran to that group, but that's not a draft need. But at tight end, I have Juwan Johnson. That's it.
Right.
Foster Moreau's a free agent. They may bring him back.
Yeah, even for me, even with Vele and the potential of what maybe Polk and some others did, I had wide receiver ahead of tight end.
That's fair. And I'm not telling you you're wrong. I just think, to me, I think people are generally overvaluing the wide receiver need compared to how the team's going to look at it.
It would have to be where they're obviously whoever comes to them at 8, they're absolutely enamored with. But I'm with you too. I'm not crazy about a wide receiver in the first round for them.
Yeah, and like Mekhi Lemon, Carnell Tate, Jordan Tyson, all really good players.
Right.
If you get to the point where that's the guy, like that's the best pick, and that's just how your board shows up, fine. But they're not going to reach for the wide receiver position, is my point. Like, I see a lot of mock drafts, and we went through this on our show on Friday.
Yeah.
On WWL, and like I surveyed all these mock drafts. I had 17 of them. 12 had them taking an offensive player. 8 had them taking a wide receiver. So almost half of these mock drafts are like, it's wide receiver or bust for me. And I don't know if I agree with that.
Yeah, it came to the point for me where the ones I saw was definitely heavy with Jeremiah Love. And it came to the point where I saw drafts, actually the Saints skipping Love. I was surprised to see that. And it was like the Chiefs, I think, had the next pick, and they would end up drafting him.
Yeah, and Daniel Jeremiah had the Saints taking low. I think he put out his first mock draft today. And there are certain people whose mock drafts I actually pay attention to. His is one of them.
Sure.
Because I believe it, like that he actually puts the time in. And like the funny thing is, like Mel Kiper, I don't. Because I think Mel Kiper is full of it a lot of the time. And he had the Saints taking Carnell Tate, I believe. And it's
Kiper?
like, yeah, and his reasoning was they desperately need wide receiver help because no one put up any numbers last year, and he didn't even mention Vele. And it was like, if you're going to argue the Saints are going to draft a wide receiver, and you're not even going to put in your explanation why that you don't believe Vele is a legitimate number 2 option, then I'm not taking. I can't take your take seriously, because clearly all you did was look at the stat sheet. You did not take any time to consider the context of where those stats were. They're just like, they don't have Shaheed, Brandon Cooks, and no one else put up any numbers. And that's just wrong, because I think this team's going to look at Vele and be like, he is a legit wide receiver in our offense.
I do feel like people immediately see Saints and you think of Rashid Shaheed's in the Super Bowl or in the playoffs before, when they were making these mocks, and that Brandon Cooks was also on the Bills. They're hurting at wide receiver.
Yeah, and I understand why people are saying that. I just don't necessarily agree with it. But either way, so this is okay. The next 3 positions, as I have them from low to high, are wide receiver, edge rusher, tight end. How would you have that ranked? Just to be clear.
See, I had tight end, edge rusher, wide receiver.
Okay.
Yeah.
We don't have to argue about it. I think that's fair. They're in that range.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have them at the top, but I do have them somewhere in the middle, where I think you could really use another one of these somewhere. Right?
Correct.
And so that moves into our top 4, which
right.
Like these are definitely needs. And the only question is, to me, positional value. So 4th, and this has a star next to it, which is funny because there's a star on a star.
I hear you. Right, slot corner.
Because it's slot corner. And now, here's the thing. If you sign Alontae Taylor, this drops like a rock.
Right.
If you let Alontae Taylor walk and you don't think Jonas Sanker or Julian Blackmon is your potential starter there, then it probably climbs to number 2 on my list. For now, with the mystery, I have it at 4th.
I'm right there with you at number 4, just because, we got Alontae heading towards free agency. What's the market going to be like? It's keeps us from circling it, as a must address spot.
Yeah, I mean, if you extend Alontae Taylor, then I put it down around where tackle is. Because not only is it not a need, you have that position sewed up for 3 years. So it's a high volatility position right now. And we'll see how long that goes. It would be nice to have that buttoned up prior to the draft if they can get that done, because I think that would inform a lot of your decision making. So now to number 3, and this is third from the top. I have defensive tackle.
Yep.
We are of one mind.
Yeah, the defense finished well this year, but we're still hurting it, especially run defense needs some beefing up. And we might have talked about this. I just have questions even for a guy like Brian Brzee and what we're seeing from him in his development. I thought he was going to have more of a standout role this past season. I just was kind of let down by him.
I do think he developed more into an all-around defensive tackle, but in doing so, I don't think you got as much out of him as a pass rusher.
Maybe that's it, right?
And I think that's probably what people are like. You didn't see kind of the dramatic impact in the passing game that you saw the year before, and part of that's probably the different scheme. I think he's a good player. I don't think he's a all-pro. But he's definitely a guy that, you look at and you say, starter. I do also look at it and say, how much are you going to pay him when he comes up for a new contract? So there's that. But to me, it's less about Brzee. It's more about, I need to find someone who can replace Devon Godchaux. I need a nose tackle. And the only question to me is there really a nose tackle prospect in this draft that's worth taking in the top 10? Because right now I'm not sure. Peter Woods out of Clemson is an option, but I don't think he's a top 10 player.
He's seen some mocks with him though.
Yeah, and I understand why, because I do think it's a pretty clear need for this team.
Yeah.
I just think that would be a reach. And I don't think it's a big enough need that you would reach that far.
Yeah.
Because I think he's probably a late first round player, and you would be reaching to get him at number 8. So we'll see. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he is a better player than that. And there's a lot of scouting that'll go into it. But Devon Godchaux is 32 years old. He's in the final year of his contract. You were giving him rest days all year. He seemed to wear down a little bit as the season came to an end. He only played like 4 snaps against the Falcons, which was weird.
And I mean, you have some developmental guys like, with Christian Boyd, you like some of the stuff you saw from him, but it's still not like a more dominant presence.
Yeah, no, Christian Boyd is a good depth. He reminds me of Malcolm Roach a little bit. Malcolm Roach playing really well for Denver. But like I don't know, like he's not a guy that I can go in and say I have that position sorted out. Vernon Broughton is kind of a wild card. He was a 3rd-round pick last year, played 1 game, got hurt. So like those are the players you have at the position are the reason that I can't say it's number 1 on my list, because you do have some talent there, but it's definitely, I need to come out of this draft with, whether it's first round or later, with 1 or 2 interior defensive line options that I can develop.
There were some cases this year where, you looking at some of the guys like a Nathan Shepard, I thought was better than I expected going into this year, but he's not in. It's more depth too there. A veteran guy that you can lean on when you need to.
Shep was really good this year,
right?
So he surprised me. I did not even have him on my initial roster projection, and then throughout the course of camp, it was like, oh, he's a starter. Like he's gonna play. He's not gonna just make the roster. He's gonna play a lot. But he's old too. I think he's like 32. He's just a little older because he got into the league late, as opposed to Godchaux, who's been in the league forever. Both are still playing at a reasonably high level, but you need young players to supplant them eventually. So that leaves us with our top 2 positions of need. And there's only 2 left, obviously, so you can probably guess. But to me, is running back. Is that the same for you?
No doubt about it, because number 1, we'll get into it, but that interior of the O-line is glaring. That please address, flashing, help. But yeah, number 2 is running back right there. And it's sad because we got a guy like Alvin Kamara here, but there's so many question marks surrounding him, but whether it's age, production, and contract.
Yeah, we can talk about both at the same time, because like guard I put above running back because it's the only position that I can't tell you they have a starter. Right? Like, and I'm talking about left guard specifically, because Dylan Radins, even if he's back, he's not a starter. He's a backup that you played a good chunk of last year. You do not want him to be your starting week 1 left guard. Cesar Ruiz, I know a lot of people hate Cesar Ruiz. I mean, and I don't put a ton of stock in the PFF grades, but like if you look at the PFF grades, it'll tell you Cesar was a solid to good pass protecting guard and an atrocious run blocking guard. And that puts his grade real middle of the pack toward the bottom. But I think he graded out 13th out of all guards in terms of pass protection. So it's at least someone's you can say he's a starting guard. Is he down closer to 32nd than second? Yes. But I at least feel like I have a starter there. I do not feel like I have a starting left guard. Running back, while I want to replace Alvin over time, I need to have a player that can put him that I can say he's our future. I at least feel like week 1, if we needed to, we could say Alvin Kamara is still the dude and roll with it and figure it out. So that puts it a little lower. That said, like when I rail against the idea of drafting a running back top 10, the reason you could sell that to me and why I'm coming around on it is because I'll at least agree 100% that running back, at least a dynamic field tilting type running back that I could put next to Tyler Shuck, is a major need for this team. Whereas wide receiver, and that's the reason I make such a big deal about it, I think is a much lesser need. So if I was to kind of go against positional value and draft a guy that is like elite at that position, but I feel like it's like, okay, does a bad team, which a 6-11 team is a bad team, does a bad team drafting a running back make them what they need to be? I don't know, but the need is what ultimately I can get on board with, because they need one.
The need for sure. What the problem is, it's like, people scoff at the notion of, they need a guard, but taking him 8th overall, folks are losing their shit.
Right. And like, yeah, and exactly. Like if my number 1 need is a position that I just can't draft in the top 10 because there's just not a player there, then my second highest need suddenly becomes primary.
Right.
And there's no Quentin Nelson in this draft. Like it's rare that you find a guy that's like so good at guard or center that you're like, yeah, we're taking him top 10. I can't remember where the Colts took Quentin Nelson, but they do not regret it for 1 second. I think it was 8th. If there was a player of that caliber in this draft, I would be saying 100% do it. 6th. There is not a player of Quentin Nelson's caliber in this draft. So, and like we said before, Jeremiah Love is so far above the second best running back that you might be able to get in the 2nd or 3rd round. And I do feel like you have a nice young developing player in Devin Neal. Kendre Miller is Kendre Miller. Like you'll keep him on the roster through training camp. If he delivers, maybe you keep him on the roster for 1 more year and see what happens. But to this point,
there's no way, shape, or form though you think he's going to be your bell cow anymore.
No, there's just no way. There's no way. It's kind of like Blackmon in that, like,
right? How long do we have you?
I'd love to give him the opportunity to prove to me that he can stay healthy, but I can't. It would be malpractice, organizational malpractice to gamble on him being healthy when all the odds and all of the indicators tell you he's just not able to do it. And who's to say he's even like, this is his 2nd major knee injury in the last 4 years. He came off a major knee injury at TCU and they still drafted him. Who's to say that doesn't impact him from a physical perspective? So
right.
It's tough, but like he's not really a factor in this conversation. Audric Estime I'd like to keep around.
Sure.
For depth. But realistically, it's Alvin Kamara, Devin Neal. And if I have Jeremiah Love, then it becomes Alvin Kamara and Jevin Love, Alvin Kamara and Jeremiah Love with Devin Neal as kind of that strong 3rd option.
Right.
And I feel really good about that room then, because a year removed, Alvin's probably gone, and it's Jeremiah Love and Devin Neal as kind of a Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier type combination.
Yeah, and I'm curious too. The free agent market, like what running backs are really going to be available, and is there someone worth investing in? Because I don't know. I just, it's amazing to me how quick it happened. It seemed with Alvin. And I know he dealt with injuries, but I don't think you can go into next season with the running back room without having another major stud in there.
Yeah, you're going to have to do something one way or the other. It's what becomes frustrating at the running back position is, you're talking about the number 8 overall pick. They're getting a fully guaranteed 4-year, $31.3 million contract. If you look at the 2026 salary rankings, so that's $6 million in year one, right? You're talking about paying Tony Pollard level salary for a rookie. And that's what I think at the end of the day is always kind of tough, because that's a big contract. Like if you take a running back in the top 5, he immediately becomes like a top 5 paid running back in the NFL.
He's the dude.
So just have to figure that out. But yeah, I don't think this is going to be a banner year for free agent running backs. Let's see. We can look really quick.
Yeah.
So Breece Hall.
I'd take him.
You know what? There's some solid players in here. You got Najee Harris, Austin Eckler's, not really an option. He's coming off a major knee injury and he's 30. Travis Etienne, so you could bring him home. Javonte Williams, I guess he signed a 1-year deal with the Cowboys, so he'll be a free agent again. Rico Dowdle, same thing, but the Panthers, I'm sure, will bring him back. And Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker III, Rashad White.
There's some names.
Isaiah Pacheco, Kenneth Gainwell. Gainwell is, I always forget Gainwell's good. He was with the Eagles, right? Am I crazy?
Yeah.
We'll see. But just to recap, from bottom to top.
It could be through something really funny too. Tyler Algier, I'm seeing as a free agent.
But that wouldn't solve your problem of I want a dynamic player to put next.
No.
So just to put these out there, this is going to be our consensus, with a couple in the middle that could switch.
Right.
From bottom to top: quarterback, offensive tackle. I'm holding up numbers here, but you can't see them. Outside corner, inside linebacker, safety, and then I have it wide receiver, edge rusher, tight end. Steve has it tight end, edge rusher, wide receiver. And again, this is going from less need to most need. And then the top 4: star position, nickel corner, then defensive tackle, and then your top 2: running back, and then number 1, interior offensive line, so guard center. I feel like we got it.
3 differences we had.
Yeah, which I mean I think is telling that this roster is in decent shape, because it's don't have a ton of positions where you're I just don't know. So I guess that's good. And again, this is not to me where the need chart comes in terms of is I have 2 players and I have identical grades on them and I cannot decide between them. How do I make that decision? Well, I really need a running back, and safety is a luxury. So, if I'm talking about Caleb Downs versus Jeremiah Love, and right. I'm just I love both these players. I'm obsessed with both these players.
But I need the running back more.
But I got to pick one. Well, I need a running back.
Yeah.
So, to me, that's where the value comes in. And if you desperately need a player, then you might reach a little bit.
Right.
But I don't think the Saints are, but that really only occurs at quarterback, offensive tackle, and corner for me. I don't think you reach for players at other positions unless maybe a couple spots. But yeah.
That they have in the past, or that you would reach for?
Just in general, the value of that position is so high. Quarterback, the grade is tough, because it's either you have a franchise quarterback grade or you don't. And it's yeah, I think just traditionally scouting, you might like, okay, this safety might have a slightly higher grade than this quarterback, but I need the quarterback. So I'm taking the quarterback. Right.
Yeah, for me, just the pass. Some of the O-line grades have not been great, and then the pass rushing grades.
Defensive end, they haven't been able to draft in forever. So
right,
that kind of scares me away from taking a first round edge rusher.
But look you got a dude in Cam Jordan too. So you've hit before, but we know the Rico Paytons and the Marcus Davenports.
Wrong Peyton, but I'll give it to you. Peyton Turner.
What did I say?
Rico Payton.
Oh, Rico Payton. Jeez. Oh, man.
He is a player. He was on the team.
He is a player, right.
He's somewhere else now. I don't know where. But either way, all right. That's it. It's going to wrap it up for this episode of Inside Black and Gold. We'll come back at you next week with kind of a Senior Bowl recap. Some more. I'm sure there'll be stuff happening by then. Probably, we'll start hearing about coaches being poached if that's going to happen. That'll be probably pretty soon. The Senior Bowl is always kind of this unofficial coach meetup. So I think you're going to end up with like a lot of these new head coaches kind of meeting people and being like, oh, okay, you was, some backroom deals. But
I wonder if we'll get access to Mickey this year.
It's a good question. Maybe it's been Jeff Ireland the last couple of years, so I'd expect it to be him again because it's really the only thing he has to do from an availability perspective all year. And Mickey really, like, what does he have to say that, like, what questions are we going to ask him that we didn't get to ask him a couple weeks ago?
Right.
So
I already just talked to you folks.
That's probably what he would.
Jeff, you handle this.
Yes. Yeah. And we actually have questions for the draft guy.
Yeah. Right.
I think there's actually a little more value at this point in the draft guy. So yeah. Anyway, we also will have a show on Friday. If you want to check that out, WWL AM 870 FM 105.3 and always on the Odyssey app. 4 to 7, I believe, unless they change it up on us, which either way, check it out. And yeah, till the next time, who dat? Go Saints. Thanks everyone for hanging out. Make sure to leave a rating, review, subscribe wherever you can.
Later, folks. Who dat?
Can I make it happen?
It refuses to acknowledge your hand gestures now. Well, there you go.
It happened for me. All right. Peace, y'all.